Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Courtney Craig and I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at AppBuddy. Thank you for taking the time to join today's webinar, How to Move to Lightning in 60 Days. If you aren't familiar with GridBuddy, we're a CRM application that allows you to easily engage with your data in a spreadsheet-like view. Before we get started, I have just a few housekeeping items to mention. A recording of today's webinar will be available tomorrow afternoon on the AppBuddy YouTube channel. We'll also email everyone after this webinar with a direct link to the recording. Also, please note that we'll have all attendees on mute during this webinar. There will be 10 minutes at the end left for questions, and we will be gathering those questions via the Q&A applet of your Zoom interface. So please send your questions in there as you have them, and we'll do our best to get to all of them at the very end. Last, if you experience technical difficulties, please sign off and attempt to reconnect. That usually resolves things, or you can also use the dial-in number provided in your invitation. All right, with that said, I'll go ahead and introduce our presenters today. We have Nana, Gregg, and Marshall King from JLL. If you're involved in the Salesforce community, you've probably already heard of these guys. But for those of you who haven't, Nana is a VP at JLL and the Senior Salesforce Administrator. She's also a Salesforce MVP. Marshall is the Senior VP of IT Solutions at JLL and a Salesforce and Financial Force Evangelist. And again, I'm Courtney, and I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at AppBuddy. I'll be moderating this webinar today. Now, without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our presenters. Over to you, Nana.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you very much.
We're going to talk a little bit about how we rolled out Lightning, lightning fast.
Yeah, so quickly our agenda for today, we'll talk about why we migrated to Lightning. We'll talk about how we got comfortable with Lightning and got ready for the migration. We'll talk a lot about engaging our community, our employee community, to get their feedback on how Lightning should work. We'll go over our Lightning Go Live strategy and how we rolled it out. And we've got some great resources to share with you. We'll also do a little bit of live demo of Lightning, and then we'll, of course, take Q&A at the end.
All right, why we migrated to Lightning.
So before we go to that, I want to just give you a little bit of overview of us so you'll kind of understand how we fit within the Salesforce world. We work specifically for a team within JLL called Digital Solutions. That's a team of professional services consultants and technology implementers. We were an independent company 2 years ago, and we were acquired by JLL. So we went from 500 employees to a company of 82,000. On our Salesforce team, we have 4 people. I'm the platform or the product owner. Nana's our senior admin, and we have another admin, and we also have a training, documentation, and change management specialist. So we're a fairly small team supporting a user base of about 700. We use Sales Cloud. We also use Pardot, and we're also very heavily engaged with Financial Force, PSA, and accounting. We, of course, use and love GridBuddy, and we have various other App Exchange apps. And the last thing I'll mention is that we don't develop. We don't have any coders on staff. We really stick to the Salesforce mantra of clicks, not codes. So other than some formulas and some things like that, we do everything with the declarative tools available in Salesforce.
All right, so let's talk about Lightning. Why did we decide to migrate to Lightning when we did? So we migrated to Lightning just over a year ago. It was in October of 2017 was when we finally decided to jump into Lightning. And one of the reasons we decided that it was time to move into Lightning is because it became really evident that Lightning was sort of the future of the platform. I religiously read the release notes when they get posted and for every upgrade. And it became pretty evident over the last few years that all of the new functionality is being built in Lightning. Classic is still being maintained, and you'll see references to Classic in the release notes, but it was really clear that if we wanted to take advantage of all the new great functionality, we were going to eventually need to move to Lightning. We also did want to take advantage of the enhanced experience, that user experience, to improve their analytics, improve the visualization of the tool, And then being able to tailor the user experience using the Lightning apps, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We finally realized that with the Winter 18 release, which was about this time last year, that it was addressing the remaining concerns that we had about Lightning. And so we felt like at that time, we weren't going to lose anything by moving to Lightning, and we were in fact going to gain quite a bit.
So we moved to Lightning in about 60 days, and people ask us often why 60 days. And to be honest, it was somewhat arbitrary. You know, we strongly feel like deadlines are important for driving success. Projects and efforts like this can drag on for a long time if you don't sort of stick a flag out there and work towards that goal. So that was one thing, is just giving us a target to be motivated to hit. But also, too, there was, in addition to the Winter 18 that Nana mentioned, there were some financial force upgrades. There were some other upgrades that were coming out. And so we felt like it was a good time to roll out a lot of new features and functionality at once, rather than having to do several different change management efforts. So the timing was good, the deadline was important, and we also felt like having that short period forced us into a more rapid, agile approach. Again, rather than kind of your traditional waterfall, we had a very interactive, iterative process to get our user feedback and make our changes to the system.
Yeah, we always laugh and I tell people, why 60 days? And it's because Marshall decided that we were going to do it in 60 days. So we holed up in a room and that's what we did.
Yep. So we're going to get into each of these buckets in more detail, but I want to just briefly overview the process. We spent about 20 days doing our own internal learning about Lightning. Then we spent about another 20 days getting our org ready, getting our apps ready. And then we spent about another 20 days with our design process of getting our user input. And we're going to go into each of these in more detail in the subsequent slides.
So let's jump right in. The very first thing that we had to do was get comfortable with Lightning.
Yeah, so this is where Nana mentioned we sat in a room. It was myself and our two admins, and we got in our large conference room and we flipped on Lightning just for ourselves in a sandbox, and we threw it up on the screen and we started playing around with it. We started learning how to configure things, learning how things were different, and we tried to spend as much time as possible in Lightning. We also turned it on in production. So we turned it on in production and tried to do our daily jobs, but then in the sandbox, we would go in and play around with page layouts and components and apps. And we just tried to force ourselves to go from 90% classic and 10% Lightning. We just watched that slide up to where we were really in Lightning all the time. And then those occasions where we had to flip back to classic, we found it really irritating. So it was a good experience for us to learn all of the features and the benefits of Lightning, so that we could be those champions and those evangelists for our users as we lead them through this whole process, which can be painful for people that are, really reluctant to make changes. We also learned some of the limitations of Lightning. We love it a lot, but there are a few limitations still, and so it's important to know those so you can work around those and train around those. And in doing this, we used a lot of resources, but I just want to emphasize Trailhead. We spent a lot of time in Trailhead, and we've actually put together our own trail mix, which is linked at the end of this presentation, that will help you with some great Lightning resources. So there are a lot of resources out there between blogs and the user community, the success community, and also Trailhead to get you up and running on Lightning.
Definitely. I think one of the biggest blockers for people moving to Lightning is that it's unfamiliar. And things that are unfamiliar are scary, and we tend to stick with the familiar. And I think, spending that time in it really gave us the opportunity to get familiar with it so we could fall in love with it. And by the time we started engaging our focus groups, we did love it. And we were really, we really wanted to make other people love it as well.
Yeah, we were excited to bring it to them. So it didn't feel like something we were having to drag them into. I mean, it may have felt that way to them, but for us, we were really excited and we saw the benefits and we wanted to really communicate that to them.
Definitely. All right, so again, Marshall mentioned in our sandbox, that we got in our sandbox and we started getting comfortable with these components and with Lightning. One of the biggest things that I think we focused our time on was learning the Lightning page layout. The Lightning page layout is really kind of the sweet spot of Lightning, and where you can really affect a lot of change and create efficiencies for your teams. Learning the difference between the page layout templates. There's default templates where you have a narrow left and a wide right, or a wide left and a narrow right, or you have 3 columns. You can also create page layout templates from scratch, which we'll talk about a little bit later. finding out where I get the fields to put on the highlights panel. Where are my buttons and actions? It's a whole different look, and it takes a little bit to get used to how to configure that Lightning page layout. It is not the same as the page record that we have in Classic. It is a skin around those object details. And I like to use that term because it truly is, it's a skin. And you can display what you want to using the Lightning components around that page detail section.
Yeah, and if I could add one thing, Nana, too. One thing that we've learned from users and from our own experience is when you first turn on Lightning, you get all of your record pages have a default layout, and that default layout is not very exciting. And sometimes that's one of the barriers for people migrating to Lightning because they don't see the bells and whistles. There are some things that we will show in the demo, like Nana mentioned, the highlights panel, the quick list, quick links, the path, the different layouts. Those aren't on your default pages. So you might first look at a new page and think, well, it's kind of boring, you know, and that's because by default they don't trick it out the way that you can. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
Yep. So we spent a lot of time just getting in there, playing around, seeing what we could do, where to find everything, practiced configuring those record pages, and seeing what the components did. And then we actually, you know, made a list on the board of, okay, here are all the objects that we want to tackle. And this is kind of how we want to design our standard Lightning record page so that we could get things a little bit ready for our focus group users. So then our final preparation steps were, and this one's super important, is testing and configuring our various AppExchange apps. As you probably know, we use a multitude of AppExchange apps. Some of them were Lightning ready, some of them were Lightning friendly, which means they can be used in Lightning, but they might still look like Classic, and some things might still function in Classic. And then there's some that aren't Lightning anything. And so it's really important as you get into Lightning and you start looking at it that you take a look at those apps. One of our biggest apps that everybody loves is Grid Buddy, which is one of the reasons we're doing this today. And I will say when we enabled Lightning and we took a look at Grid Buddy in Lightning, it was ready to go. And they even provided components, Lightning ready components for us just to plug and play on our Lightning record page layout. And that made it so much easier for us. We didn't have to come up with a workaround or design around that. So you've got to test and you've got to configure those apps and make sure that they're ready for your go live. And then we started looking at the actual Lightning apps. So the Lightning app launcher and the apps that you're able to use and the way that you're able to configure those is 100 times better than the way the app launcher works in Classic, and so very different than the way the app launcher works in Classic. One tip that we have is that we actually started with new Lightning apps. We didn't reuse old Classic apps, and an app is obviously a collection of objects that you want to sort of direct people to. That's the kind of traditional Classic app functionality. But when you get into Lightning, apps mean so much more because you can activate a Lightning record page that's specific to an app. You can really start to tailor that user experience. And so that's where we started to develop what we call persona-based apps. And we picked our commonly used objects so that we could configure those record pages. And then what we did for our focus group users is we actually set up some records with different Lightning pages and templates so that they could visualize the options when we're starting to work with them on how we are going to roll out Lightning. It's so much easier when they can see it. They can actually provide really great feedback than if you're just trying to describe it to them. Next up is those user personas that I talked about. And how we determined our personas and then engaging those personas.
Yeah, so we went through a design phase. We defined the personas as Nana mentioned, and we just looked at our user community and we divided them up into kind of their functional areas. And we pretty much had 4. We have what we call our chatter only, our time entry users. So we use Financial Force for all of our project management and time entry and invoicing. So everybody in our team, all 700 people, have a license, but some of them just log time and use chatter. So that was the community, but we have sales and account managers, we have a billing and finance team, and then we have project management. And they each have different needs. They need different objects, they need different information when they look at those objects. And so we use those as our different focus groups. We selected people from the community. We picked some of our stronger users, some of our big advocates who really liked the system and we knew would really benefit from Lightning. We picked some of our more difficult, more grumpy users because we wanted to get their input as well. You know, this might be a way to actually engage them more in the system. And so we formed these groups and we made sure that we had a pretty good diversity of geographies and business units and things like that, so that we tried to get as much feedback as we could. But we kept them fairly small. They started out with about 4 to 5 people, and then we went through a second round of design where we expanded it to about 8 to 10 people. So in those sessions, we turned on Lightning for those focus groups in production. And this scares people sometimes, but we'll talk about how we did it. And we got in there, like Nana mentioned, and we pulled up the key object those people would use. So with the salespeople, we might look at accounts and opportunities and leads. And we would show them, hey, here's a page that's wide left, narrow right. Here's one that's wide right, narrow left. And they would say, well, I don't really like this. Can you change this? Can you add a tab? Can you remove a tab? Because when you get into Lightning, you can put chatter on different tabs. You can put your activity history on different tabs. You can put related lists on tabs. It's really amazing the things that you can do. And so we gave our users those choices. What do you want to do? How do you guys want to see it? And so we would make those changes, and then we encourage them, go try to use this in production. They could always switch back to Classic. So if they reached something that wasn't working for them, it didn't stop them from doing their job. They just flip to Classic and go about their day and give us that feedback through chatter. We created a chatter group for this purpose of gathering their feedback. So that worked really well for us, giving them live decision-making capabilities, and then go out there and use it.
Yep, absolutely. One of the other really cool things we did is because we were able to create Lightning apps, and activate Lightning record pages just for specific apps, we created what we call the beta app. And it's basically a testing app. So we took our commonly used objects and we made them a part of our beta app. And as people had requests or suggestions about changing up the Lightning record pages or adding some additional functionality that's related to Lightning, we would actually make those changes in the beta app. And we gave access to that beta app just to this set of focus users. So when they made a request or asked a question and said, hey, I'd really like to see this page with a wide left and narrow right, and I want you to take these things off and rearrange. I think that's going to make us function faster and more efficiently. We would, instead of doing it in the sales management app on the opportunity Lightning record page, we would go first to the beta app and we would make that change in the beta app to the opportunity record. And we'd tell those people, okay, switch over to the beta app and take a look at it there and maybe use it there for a few days and see what you think and provide your feedback. And once they've done that for a little while and they've all made the decision that, yep, this is exactly what we want, then we can easily open up that Lightning record page and now activate it for that sales management app. So now it's available to all the users. So it's a really great way to test and to get live feedback. And people don't actually have to take time out of their day to log into a Sandbox just to look at sort of that visual functionality, and it's made it so much quicker to get feedback from users. So then our final steps before go live, we did a couple of things. There's a Lightning usage app that when you turn on Lightning is automatically enabled in your org, where you can see who's switching from Classic to Lightning and from Lightning back to Classic, which pages they're on when they switch, so that you can say, oh, they're commonly on the account record when they switch to Classic. So maybe there's something on the account record that I can configure better so that they're not going to need to feel like they need to switch back to Classic to view that record. So there's a lot of really great benefits about that Lightning usage app. So what we did is we got super familiar with it. and sort of determined a baseline of where everyone was. We scheduled training sessions for all of our users with training materials on the training materials, we really focused on the what's in it for me kind of concept. We knew this was going to be a big change for our users and big changes people are scared of. We were scared of it. I know they're going to be scared of it. So we really focused a lot of our training on, hey, here are all the benefits you're going to get, the efficiencies that are going to be created, and the things that we're going to be providing to you, so that they really walked away feeling like this was a really great change. We scheduled numerous training sessions, obviously at various times, to encourage participation, and then we recorded sessions and posted those sessions in Chatter along with the training materials so that everybody was ready to go. And then we went live. Marshall?
Okay, so the Lightning Go Live steps. We sent out an early announcement letting them know we were going to do this, because one thing you may know if you've ever turned on Lightning is the minute you do, all the users that you give access to Lightning, they're immediately flipped into Lightning. And we didn't want to train ahead of time. We like to train when the features and the functionality are available for our users so they can immediately get hands-on. So we sent out an email the week before saying, okay, Monday morning, we're going to flip you all to Lightning. It's going to look really different, and you can feel free to flip back to Classic and go about your day. And here are 5 different training sessions you can attend. So that's what we did. Monday morning, we came in, we gave everybody access to Lightning. They all got flipped. Some people who were adventurous and excited, they stayed in Lightning. A lot of people flipped back to Classic. And then we did that training session. We created a chatter group and encouraged people to provide us feedback on Lightning through chatter. So we got a lot of good Q&A and suggestions and things like that. And then as Nana mentioned, we began using that adoption app. We configured some of the dashboards and reports based on our different communities so that we could monitor who's doing better in Lightning, who's doing worse, other groups that are more reluctant, so we could reach out to them and find out, okay, well, what's the hesitation?
All right, some of the favorite features.
Yeah, so we really loved the dashboarding. Nana mentioned this earlier. The dashboards are just light years beyond what's in Classic. The ability, the different chart options and visualizations, the rich colors, the ability to size things differently makes a huge difference, that you can emphasize different information, or you can just size it bigger because of the nature of the information you're trying to present. And the apps that we mentioned earlier, where a project manager sees a different layout than a salesperson, than a finance person, that was huge for us, giving them tailored layouts that really specifically focused on how they needed to operate on a daily basis. Those are the 2 biggest features. There are a lot of other features that are out there that we love, like favorites, and you can make custom, users can make their own tabs and rearrange their tabs. There are a lot of real great usability features in Lightning, and Nana will highlight some of those during the demo.
Yep. Definitely. All right, and I think this is kind of a common theme that we had throughout our Lightning rollout, was that we found that the best way to ensure that people were going to adopt Lightning was to ensure that Lightning delivered value to that user, gave them that what's in it for me factor. And as we continue to roll forward, that's where we really continue to put our focus, is what's in it for the user. How can I enable something or make a change to something that's really going to provide additional benefit to the user, so that, again, they continue to adopt and continue to love Lightning as much as we do, because it's continuing to deliver value to them. All right, so once we rolled out Lightning last year, we didn't just stop there. After we got Spring 18, we were able to roll out the custom theming, which is really fabulous. It allowed us to brand our org very similarly to our company brand, so it really feels like it's a personal product. We've continued continuous improvement with our Lightning Chatter group, with our beta app. We continue to engage with those focus group users, and to continue, we tweak and make changes as needs come up. A couple of things like enhancing the experience using that conditional visibility features on Lightning record pages, where you can show or hide a Lightning component based on data on the record, or based on data on the user's record are based on user permissions, which is super fabulous. You've never been able to do that in Classic without actually coding. And now with Lightning, you can really get granular with what you're showing the user with just point and click tools, which is fabulous. We've created some executive level apps with a focus on analytics. So our executive team, they don't necessarily want to see or need to see all the details around an account. They want to see analytics about the account. And so we're able to embed report charts onto the account Lightning record page so that they can very quickly get to the data that they need. And we've been embedding Lightning flow components to replace repetitive tasks. And then taking our additional apps like GridBuddy and enhancing them and so that they become even more useful to our users. We've got office hours and Slack channels where people can reach out to us for support, as well as chatter, obviously. And then we actually began the process slowly of disabling Classic by profile. So we started out with that group of kind of chatter and time entry only users. They're not doing a lot in the system, so it made sense, obviously, of course, to disable Classic first for them so that they're forced into Lightning. They don't really have any need to go to Classic. So we did that slowly. And then we started slowly throughout our other personas. And in fact, one of the ways that we actually got people to stay in Lightning, even though they were a little less comfortable, was we took our embedded GridBuddy grids that was embedded in a page layout that everybody loves, and we actually took it off the page layout in Classic. So if they wanted to use their favorite grids, they had to be in Lightning to use them. So we actually kind of used that sort of carrot, and we moved the carrot from Classic to Lightning.
Some people would call that a stick, but okay.
No, I think it's a carrot, so that they could get more familiar. It kind of forced them to spend more time in Lightning because people stick, again, with what they're familiar with. And a lot of times they just stayed in Classic just because they knew where everything was. And so by inching them into Lightning, I think we've done them a service. And now we have a very small number, maybe 5 to 10 users who switch back to Classic on a weekly basis and for very specific reasons. And for the most part, you know, everybody's in Lightning and loves it. So the next thing we're going to do before we get to resources is we're going to just jump in. I've got a sandbox. I'm going to show a few of these things that we've been talking about so that you can actually, again, I'm a big proponent of if you see it, it makes a lot more sense. So this is our sandbox. You can see some information here. I'm obviously logged in as myself as an administrator, so one of the first things I see is who's adopting Lightning, which is great. So we'll talk a little bit about those personas and the Lightning apps. I'm going to open up my app launcher, and I've got a lot more apps than the regular user does, but these 4 at the top are the 4 that Marshall talked about. We've got our billing and finance app, we've got our project management app, sales management, we got our time entry and chatter app, and then we've got our beta testing app. As admins, we've got our own app so that we can manage data the way that we want to. But right now, so this is how we kind of thought about our persona groups and how they coincided with apps. We do have people that cross different functions. Maybe for the most part, they manage projects, but occasionally they're selling to that customer. So most of the time they're going to be in the project management app, but occasionally they need to sell. And so they need to put their selling hat on and switch over to the sales management app. So first I'm going to show you the project management app. And when we first open up the project management app, we've got a certain set of tabs that are defaulted across the top, but they can rearrange them, which is fabulous. And I'm going to go to a project record in our project management app. So you can see, as a project manager, there are lots of things that I want to look at. I obviously want to see some highlights about that project. We've got a path going on here with our stages, our related list items. our beta users and focus group users initially decided that they liked this narrow left column for the project record details, but they liked this wide right column because, again, there's our embedded Grid Buddy grid. Because we have milestones, which are a child object to project, and that's something they have to manage and manipulate and edit the data pretty regularly. And so they're coming in, they're looking at their project, and they're looking at the grid and making changes to those milestones that are related to this project. And so this is fabulous. They love this. We got a lot of feedback. We're able to show or hide some notification components based on conditional visibility. And they love their embedded grid being served up to them first. So for project managers, this is their go-to. They can see this grid, they can do what they need to do without opening things up in another tab. One of the comments that we had recently was that they love the grid, but there's a lot of columns in the grid and they have to scroll over. So we were able to enable these data cards so that we could take a few columns off the grid because we've got the unlimited package of Grid Buddy, which gives you these data cards. But there are still some columns that are just pivotal that we didn't want to hide and add another click. But we wanted to kind of help our project managers out so that they didn't have to scroll so much. So in a minute, I'll show you in our beta app some things that we've done and that we're proposing to our project managers so that we can make some better use of this space here and really highlight the grid for them. But now I'm the project manager and now I need to put my sales hat on, okay? Actually, I'm gonna put my billing hat on. Maybe I'm gonna bill for this project and I'm gonna become a finance user. So as a finance user, these are not the things that I need to manage every day on the project. As a finance user, maybe I'm creating a lot of milestones for this project, and maybe I need to bill for this project. So I'm going to flip over to my billing and finance app, and you'll see in the billing and finance app, I've got different tabs across the top. I've got sales invoices and journals and the ability to select a company. But when I go to this same project, my Sandbox won't be slow, exact same project record, and it looks different for the billing person in the billing app. And the only difference is the app that we switched to. So, and that's where that skin concept comes in. The Lightning record page is a skin around that same set of details that you have in Classic. Those same related lists, the same fields and set of data, but we can skin it and apply those to different apps so that people have what they need at their fingertips. As a billing team member, I'm going to come to this. I really am into the details of this project because I'm managing the detailed fields. I don't need to manage those milestones like the project manager does, but if I need to, I can get to them right here quickly and simply. I can also get to this flow screen to create multiple milestones. So we've been able to embed a simple flow where they enter some data and the flow creates multiple records. And we were, again, never able to do that in Classic without coding. And we've been able to quickly and easily do that in Lightning.
And that's a great example where, you know, the milestones tab and the time cards tab, those are related lists. You can get to those in other ways, but they said those are the most important for them. So now they have a very quick click to get right to those related lists immediately. And they have all the other related lists above, but this is what they prioritize. So this is laid out just for them the way they wanted it.
Yep. So let's talk really quick before we get to questions. I think we have some time. And our beta app, I talked about our project managers weren't super happy with having to scroll over on those milestones, on that milestone grid, but they don't want to make it wide like the billing team uses here. So we were trying to come up with some other options for them. And so we're going to flip over to our beta testing app where we've only got a few objects, but it's where we sort of apply our Lightning record changes. So I'm going to come over to this exact same project in our beta testing app, and you'll see that we've made a little bit of a change. So we've now got a wide left column and a narrow right column, because we wanted to keep the chatter featured. We changed our indicator a little bit. It was an icon. Now we've just got some text here that shows based on values. And we've actually put the milestones under another tab. So it is a click away. So that's a little bit of a change. So they can still get to that milestone grid. But one of the cool things about this Lightning record page template is, you see this little arrow, I can actually collapse the sidebar. So now we've got the benefit of that wide full page to see our grid, and we see our entire grid details. We don't have to scroll over it all. But if I need to chatter post on the record, I can really quickly open that side panel up and chatter post on the record and ask somebody a question. And this is an example of a custom Lightning record page template. This is not something that comes as a default or as standard, but I, as a non-coder, was able to create this Lightning record page template pretty simply in our Sandbox and provide this to our users to take a look at. There's actually a great blog post on the Salesforce developer blog that describes exactly how to create these, and I've got it linked in our resources as well. But you can go in and you can do exactly what they say in the blog post, and you can create a page template just like this, so that you can provide, again, more options to your users. I think that, to me, is one of the biggest benefits of Lightning, is the ability to really tailor exactly what your user is seeing to what they're needing to do, right?
Exactly. Hey, Nana, can you click on the Analytics tab?
Absolutely.
No, not the app, the actual tab on the project there.
Oh,
Sorry.
Apologize. Yes.
So this is another really cool thing you can do with Lightning, and Nana alluded to this earlier. You can take report charts and you can embed them on a tab or on the page. And you can also show those conditionally. So again, this is our Sandbox. So here we go. So this is a snapshot of our milestones with certain information about the planned hours and the forecasted hours and the submitted hours. And so a project manager can very quickly see his or her milestones and how they're progressing. If this was a project that wasn't a time project, maybe it was just selling software, that chart wouldn't even show up because there's no time to be entered, no T&M milestones on the project. So we use this feature a lot for data quality, for conditionally showing information when needed, for warnings and alerts like the financial indicator. It's really simple to set up. And that's one thing I kind of wanted to say, is that once you've gotten comfortable with page layouts, you can set up a page like this in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And I'm not an admin, and none of us are coders. So one of the things we did when we rolled out is we didn't try to hit every single object in our whole system. It was just too vast. We hit all the most important ones, but as we were using the system on a daily basis, if I clicked into a sales invoice line item and it was the default page layout, I could spend 5 minutes and quickly optimize it based on our standard page layouts that we preferred, and then I was good to go. So it's one of those things that once you get comfortable with it, you can do it so quickly that it makes it really easy to continuously enhance and grow Lightning.
Yep, agreed. So let's jump into our resources, because that's a really good segue. As we were going through and working through our launch into Lightning, I actually wrote some blog posts kind of throughout that process about how we got comfortable with Lightning, about sort of using that skin concept around the Lightning record pages, and then about some of the issues that we had with IE 11, because as you probably know, there's some issues with accessing Lightning with IE 11. So I've got a couple blog posts there where I get into a lot more detail, so you can take a look at those. This first link right here, the developer.salesforce.com blog, is creating that custom Lightning page template with the collapsible sidebar. Some great content there. And then this is a blog post by Jen Lee, if you know who she is, you probably do, that she's got on giving the users the ability to show or hide components by adding a toggle onto a Lightning record page. So you can add a little toggle with a flow component onto a Lightning record page and actually let the user choose whether to show or hide components or not, which is super fabulous. if you've got somebody and they want to be able to see the grids, but sometimes they need to see the record details, maybe we add a toggle to the top of the page and they can just toggle the grid on or off really quickly and easily. So it's a fabulous blog post. And then we've got our trail mix. And this is actually the trailhead trail that we followed as we were getting comfortable with Lightning and learning about Lightning and making our choices. So we followed that, and it's got some great content for you as well. All right, back to you, Courtney.
All right, thanks, Nana and Marshall. So just piggybacking on this great presentation, I wanted to mention a few ways that GridBuddy can actually ease the migration to Lightning, just in case, a lot of you are going through this right now. Maybe you already have us, or you are just learning about us. A couple points here on this on how we can help. One is that, as Nana mentioned, we are Lightning ready as a Lightning component. So it's one less thing you have to worry about when you do the transition. It'll just be good to go when you switch between Classic and Lightning. Our app stays the same. So also the interface is really similar to Lightning. So if you're already using GridBuddy in Classic and you switch over, your users won't notice any difference on the front end. It'll be the same. So it kind of eases that transition because they're dealing with a lot of changes all of a sudden, but it's just one less thing that they have to worry about that hasn't changed. And even with Lightning, your users will still need to do things like mass actions and updates that take a lot of clicks through a lot of pages, just like they did in Classic. So that's another thing that, in addition to the improvements that Lightning makes on Salesforce, GridBuddy also helps enhance Lightning by providing that interface within Lightning pages that lets users update hundreds of records across multiple objects from a single screen. And it just makes that change management for people who are managing this process, like Nana and Marshall, so much easier. And you can embed GridBuddy also on any Lightning page and create tabbed workspaces, just like Nana showed. So it's just an all-in-one easy workspace that your users never have to leave. And I'm going to turn it now to our Q&A. Thank you, Nana, for switching the slide. So I have a couple of questions sent in already through the Q&A icon on Zoom, but if any of you were holding your questions, please send them in now, and I'm going to answer them in order. We have about 15 minutes for questions, so that's great. And let me pull up the first one. Okay, so Nana and Marshall, I'm going to just state the first question, and whichever of you feels like you want to answer that one, just go ahead and take it. So the first question is from Asrar, and they're asking, as Salesforce admins, did you enable Lightning in production before going live?
Yeah, we did. We enabled it for ourselves first, and we worked in Lightning as much as we could. And we spent all of our time as much as we could in Lightning, like I said. And then we enabled it in production for those focus groups so they could try to operate in Lightning as well. And then we obviously enabled it on day one for all of our users. And the reason I feel like you can do that safely is a couple of things. One is that, as Nana mentioned, we created brand new apps. So we weren't touching our Classic apps. So the people that were in Classic that didn't have access to Lightning, they didn't know that new apps were out there because they're only available in Lightning. Also, as Nana mentioned, she uses the skin metaphor. It's a great metaphor. It's a wrapper, a skin around your current record page. So as long as you're not moving fields around, again, the Classic users don't know that you've added all these tabs and a path and a highlights panel. None of that is visible to them. So you can either do a mass rollout or you can do a staged rollout, and you won't impact your Classic users by configuring Lightning.
Perfect. We had a couple people ask that question. So if you feel like, there's a certain element of that you didn't feel was answered just now, go ahead and send in your question again. Like someone did say, is this a good idea? Marshall, I think you just said why it was a good idea, but if there's anything you want to add to that, please do.
Yeah, one thing that I'll add is, obviously you'll want to do some work in the sandbox, right? especially if you're talking about creating flows and making code changes and that type of thing. You're going to want to do all that in the Sandbox. But you can turn on Lightning in production and make minor Lightning record page changes in production, because you're just moving around components. And that's only visible to people who have access to Lightning. Right now, if you spin up a brand new Salesforce org, it's in Lightning. It's not in Classic. And Salesforce has begun the process of auto turning on Lightning for orgs. And if they've made the determination that it's okay to auto enable Lightning, you can do that too. You can turn on Lightning and only give yourself permission to use it and spend time in it in production.
In other words, don't be scared.
Don't be scared.
Yeah, be cautious, but don't be scared.
Okay, so we have another one. They're saying, I know you guys mentioned no code / low code. Did you have any JavaScript or other buttons you had any issue migrating to Lightning?
We did have some JavaScript buttons, and mainly those were buttons that we have through AppExchange apps. And when we moved to Lightning, it was actually before Salesforce provided that button converter. So now there's a converter where you can check all your JavaScript buttons, and it will provide some guidance for how to convert those over and even convert those automatically for you, which is fabulous. But we did have some. So I definitely encourage you to check those AppExchange apps and see where they're at in converting the buttons for you and upgrading those packages as needed. We have one specific AppExchange app that I'm not going to name. I probably name it in one of my blog posts that we've had issues with. And it's taken a lot of time to convert what we need to convert because of some JavaScript buttons. And it's kind of been a bummer that they weren't ready like AppBuddy was. And that's probably what I would say. Those are the kinds of things that you're going to want to test in the Sandbox, and you're going to want to really make some decisions about, because you might be able to change some of those JavaScript buttons into actions or use flows instead of using those JavaScript buttons. So it gives you a chance to really evaluate what you're doing in your org as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have someone asking how you disabled Classic.
That's an admin question.
I'll take that one. So for it's a permission on the profile. Or if you're using permission sets, you can actually disable Classic by profile. So we actually just went in and by profile and disabled Classic for certain sets of users, and we've gone through all of our users and done that. Again, I do have a blog post about IE11. There's a little bit of an issue there with IE11, but it's a little too involved to get into in the next 10 minutes. But you can read about that and feel free to reach out to me if you've got IE11 questions.
While we're on the topic of resources again, Nana, we have someone asking for the link to the blog post where you mentioned how to create custom templates. They didn't see it on the resources slide. Would you be able to share that maybe in the chat, or just if you happen to know the link offhand? Yep,
I've got it showing right here.
Great, okay.
Can you copy and paste that? Yeah, because you're in presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, someone's asking, do all object fields in class, I think they're asking, are all object fields in Classic also available in Lightning?
Yep, every field is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, custom objects, custom fields.
All right. So here's a good one. In terms of percentage, how much feedback received from business was incorporated with standard Salesforce Lightning features versus that was required, versus required customization like JavaScript, Apex, Lightning components, etc.? So that question.
Yeah, so Yeah, that's a great question. So we don't do JavaScript or Apex. So we didn't do any JavaScript or Apex. And we're using out-of-the-box components or components from the App Exchange. The only custom thing we've done is the page layout with the collapsible sidebar, which Nana mentioned. So all the needs that came in were met by the features of Lightning pretty much out of the box with a little bit of App Exchange stuff.
Gotcha. And then that collapsible sidebar, someone did ask how you created that. So that was all custom?
Well, it's in that link that Nana just referenced. So it is custom, but we don't code, so we copy and paste. So it is a little bit of coding, but you can copy and paste it into your org, and there might be a little bit of tweaking. We had to do some. And again, Nana said you can reach out to us if you have questions.
Yep.
But we didn't develop it ourselves.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I'm not a developer, and I was able to follow the instructions in the blog post and recreate that collapsible side page.
Okay. So someone's also asking, do you think for an org that has 100,000 plus users, it's possible to migrate to Lightning in 60 days?
Well,
probably not, but it depends on how complex. I mean, are a lot of diversity in your user base, a lot of different profiles, it really depends on the complexity of your org. Probably an org that big is probably fairly complex, much more complex than ours. So I would say potentially no, but it really depends on the homogeneity of your community and your user base.
Okay. Someone's wondering, did your org have custom Visualforce pages? And if yes, how did you migrate those to Lightning?
the only custom Visualforce pages that we had, again, were from our App Exchange apps. So that really fell back onto the plate of our App Exchange partners, and was definitely something that we looked at as we were working through when we could move to Lightning and how quickly we could move to Lightning and whether our App Exchange apps were ready. Again, because we're low and no code, we hadn't created any of our own personal Visualforce pages. It was all just installed from App Exchange apps, and we made sure they were all at the very least Lightning friendly. Remember, Lightning friendly means that it can be seen in Lightning. It might still look a little bit like Classic embedded in a Lightning page, but you can use it in Lightning. So that was really our bar. As long as you could use it in Lightning without having to switch back to Classic, we made the decision that we were okay with it not being fully ready yet. But we wanted them to be ready like GridBuddy was.
Good answer. Okay, so we also have someone asking, would you happen to know Salesforce, CPQ, HubSpot, and Discover.org if they're ready for Lightning? If those three things are Lightning ready?
No idea.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, we don't use those.
Okay.
There is a really great, if you get out on the success community, there's a really great group on the Trailblazer community, called Lightning Now. So join the Lightning Now group on the Trailblazer community, and you can ask all of those questions that we can't answer about specific products. And there will be somebody out of the hundreds of thousands of users that will have an answer for you. So we use that a lot.
Great. Okay, and someone's wondering, are you using Salesforce One mobile app? How is going live with Lightning, how does this impact users using the mobile app? And did you perform any configuration?
So we have a few users that use the mobile app, not a very large percentage of our users do. There is one specific area that if you're making changes to Lightning record pages, it will affect your mobile users, and it really has to do with the buttons and actions and how you rearrange those for your Lightning record page. When you rearrange them in Lightning, it doesn't affect Classic, but it actually does affect your mobile interface. So that's something you'll want to think about. But otherwise, we didn't need to make any other changes or have any issues between Lightning and mobile.
Okay. All right, if anyone has any last questions, please send them in now. And let me just make sure we don't have any more coming in. While we're waiting, Marshall and Nana, is there anything that you guys wanted to mention before we wrap up?
So Marshall, I think, mentioned this earlier in the presentation. I'll say when people ask me what I like about Lightning, as an admin, I was super nervous, and it made like Lightning made me nauseous. I've been an admin for 12 years. I'm used to Classic, and just looking at Lightning, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know where anything is. But once we started really using Lightning and realizing the power of Lightning, and I started realizing that some of these things that I had been wanting to do as an admin for 10 years, for a decade, I've been wanting to show a flag at the top of a record that there's some data on the record that's wrong, and haven't been able to do that without engaging developers. And now I'm able to do it with 30 seconds and 2 clicks. It's just amazingly powerful. And so to me, the benefits of moving to Lightning and being able to do some of those things that we as admins have been wanting to do for a long time has been a game changer.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mentioned this earlier, but I'm not a developer or an admin, but I've added those components to opportunities. Hey, your currency's wrong. Conditional thing, it takes a couple of minutes to do. It's really easy. The other thing I would add that we really didn't cover, but we mentioned, is that there are so many more cool features in Lightning. There are favorites. You can favorite a report, a dashboard, a list view, a record. You can take any list view or a record or a dashboard or a report and make it a tab. And I don't mean an admin can do it. I mean the end user can do it. So if you have a salesperson that has a dashboard that they love, they can make it their own tab, move it around in their tab bar, maybe even make it the first tab. So when they log into Salesforce, they see that dashboard every day. I actually have my own dashboard that I do data quality, and that's exactly how I use it. So it just extends the productivity capabilities of Lightning are amazing, and it puts it in the hands of your users. Plus, it puts it in the hands of your admins, and it makes it so much easier to really optimize the tool for those experiences. So it's really been a kind of a game changer for us, I think.
Okay, we do have 2 last questions. So one is, are you planning to migrate your communities to Lightning communities? If yes, in your opinion, how is this different?
Yeah, we don't use Lightning communities. It's on our roadmap, but today we don't use them.
Okay. And then the last question, and then we'll wrap things up. Someone says, I keep hearing that Lightning has slow loading pages. Did you experience this?
So depending on how you configure your pages, they could be slow. If you've got a lot of related records, it's designed to load all those records to surface them up to the user. So there are some ways you can configure your pages so that they're not as slow. Things like when someone clicks on a record, you don't have the related lists as the default to show all the related lists, because then it's not going to try to load all those related lists. If you have the record details as your default, that's kind of static field data, and so it's going to load those first, and then put your related lists under a tab so that those don't actually try to load until the users click on that additional tab. So there are things you can do to speed up the loading of records. One cool thing is that Lightning usage app that I mentioned actually tells you the load speed of pages. So you can see which pages are taking longer to load, so that as an admin, you can go in and try to reconfigure those so that you're optimizing them for the users. So there's definitely a lot you can do. It's doing a lot. It's serving up a lot to your users. So as an admin, it's kind of your responsibility to go in and try to tweak that and make that into a better situation for your users, for sure.
Yeah, and I'll just really quickly add that I think in the very beginning, we had a little bit of problem with that, but we haven't in a long time. And I'm somebody who's I'm in the system all day long. I'm running reports, dashboards, editing data constantly, and I never feel that the performance is sluggish or slow. I'm very efficient in Salesforce. So I think they've done a lot to improve some system issues. And then Nana mentioned there are definitely ways you can also improve it on your own.
Great. Okay, we are out of time, so we're going to stop here. If we didn't get to your question, or if you have questions that you still want to get answered, you can contact Nana or Marshall via the information you see on the screen right now. They were nice enough to agree to try and help you guys after this webinar if we didn't get to anything. Also, if you have any questions for us here at AppBuddy or feedback, we'd love to hear them. You can contact us at info@appbuddy.com and we'll definitely respond to you. And we will be sending a recording of this webinar so that you have all this information handy. And that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you again, everybody. Benjamin Shute says, thank you for the valuable information. Thank you, Benjamin. And Nana and Greg, thank you, or sorry, Nana and Marshall, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.